And boy, if I were a misogynist podcast, I would have some fun with the Klay Thompson slump. I'm telling y'all, I skipped it the last two pods just because I'm the wrong person to have fun with that type of topic. Yeah.
Y'all know this a little old, but I finally got to it. I know I was lacking on this motherfucker, but I finally got to it. But anyways, we hit the top real quick because Melyssa Ford discusses misogyny in podcasting with Charlamagne the God amid the Joe Budden exit. Again, I didn't talk about this at the time, but I do feel like in the timeline of her leaving the podcast, it is an important discussion to have. So at the time, this was before Joe was like, I should kumbaya with Charlamagne and shit should be cool. At the time, Melyssa Ford was gone. Of course, we're seeing Mona get integrated to the cast, and Melyssa Ford was gone for like a good 2 months, and we were like, what the fuck happened? Then Mona came around, so we was like, what's going on? Is Mona the replacement? What is happening? What happened to Melyssa Ford's contract? And basically, as Joe said on like the Jim Jones thing, I don't know if it was like she was like negotiating, they basically couldn't come up with something properly or whatever have you, and basically she went on her way. I don't know if it was like a mental health thing, and she went on her way. So of course we know Melyssa Ford got the fucking Hot and Bothered podcast. You know, she doing her thing with women's health and all that. But even with that being said, it was still weird that we didn't even get a goodbye. Like, just the way she just disappeared, it just made no fucking sense. And of course, us as the fans were questioning and wondering what the fuck happened, what was going on, this and that, and this. And now we're just over here. So now we got this going on. So Melyssa Ford's appearances on the Joe Budden podcast started becoming more and more infrequent in recent months, or at a while. Anyways, Melyssa Ford sat down with Charlamagne the God for her new interview on her Hot and Bothered podcast. In doing so, discussed the prevalence of misogyny in the male-dominated podcast community. Considering her recent exit from the Joe Budden podcast, fans on social media have been interpreting the comments as shade towards her former co-host, as well as the fact that at the time, not to say Joe and Charlamagne have like monstrous beef, but like at the time, well, I don't even know if they have reconciled much now, but even still, in that timeline, I guess they weren't the best of friends and they didn't speak much.
My own experiences of being around a certain type of a certain group of men who exhibit groupthink, and that groupthink tends to lean very
I've had my own experiences being around a certain group of men who have, a certain group of men, of course, have exhibited groupthink, she said. And that groupthink tends to lean very misogynistically. It has an effect on you as somebody who is just kind of absorbing it simply just because I'm a woman and I'm the woman in the room. As many fans criticized Ford on X/Twitter for her remarks, others came to her defense, y'all literally making her point in the comments. Can't make this ish up, one user wrote. Another added, I wish she would have said this on the pod because I've always thought it was weird for the podcast to diss those fresh and fit N-words and their audience coincides with one another. I'm not gonna say that 100% that their audiences coincide. Them fresh and fit red pill, nah, some of them be on some other bullshit. I ain't gonna care. Maybe some niggas float between both. I'm not gonna say that. There is guy perspectives and women perspectives. That's why I always say, like, girl, like the way a girl moves and the way a guy moves it could be similar things, but it's two different things. But yes, I will say they did dogpile on her a lot. They did at times, because she was the only female voice in the room. That's when it got to the point when Mark came in and he's a little bit more educated. Not to say there wouldn't be times that Mark would agree with the majority of the guys, but at least there would be a little bit more pushback, and we would see somebody on Mel's side more often compared to majority of the guys always ganging up on her in specific views. At least we had some like diversity with Mark joining her side and extending the conversation sometimes to make points more valid, which I did appreciate Mark for. But again, many fans pointed to Charlamagne and Joe Budden's relationship. I see Charlamagne is playing chess with the JBP. He and Joe have always had a little lightweight beef with each other. It's more like who can quietly out petty each other on the low, one user wrote. While neither Melyssa Ford nor Joe Budden has provided an official announcement for the split, it appears Ford's time on the show has come to an end. Her appearances on the show began becoming more infrequent in recent months until they eventually stopped altogether. After that, Melyssa Ford was removed the JBP from her Instagram bio. Earlier in the year, Drake seemingly tried to drive a wedge between them. I'm not gonna say Drake drove a wedge between them, but yes, he was bigging up for to this Joe. We all seen that play happening. And again, I don't know how her and Drake are, but they seem to be on decent terms, I would say. Between Melyssa Ford and Joe on his album, Some Sexy Songs for You. On the track, Give Me a Hug, he praised Ford while calling out his longtime rival, Joe Budden. Melyssa Ford, you a legend from the 6. How you sit next to a D sucker? You heard me? Like what he said. Again. And it did get to the point where fans did think they were censoring her name at a point. But again, we will see. Again, they did not handle this shit the best. But again, we will see what happens from it. Again, we will see. Maybe one day we'll actually know what the fuck happened with that situation, but for now, hey, we figuring it out. Like I said, Danny from the Stop, Elevation, there's certain niggas, bro, that they be covering this all the time, so they probably more in the know than me. Go check them brothers out. But yeah, I'm just sitting here like, hey, it is what it is. And even with Mona, even there's times motherfuckers be sitting there like, yo, I miss Mel. I will say this, Joe, you kind of do look crazy, whether it's Ozempic. People been telling me in the comments it's Zemp bound or whatever the fuck it's called, but like, regardless, bro, y'all was getting on Mel for taking whatever she was taking to slim down a bit. So the fact, Joe, you doing that shit, bro, come on, folks. Little bit hypocritical. We got to keep a spade. We can't sit here and act like it ain't. But anyways, besides all that, what do y'all think? You already know what it is. Your friendly neighborhood K.A. signing off for today. The Black TJ Detweiler doing this thing. My name ring bells like Quasimodo. Hit like, subscribe. You try to hit a little bit more. You heard, man. I'm gone. Slime some peace, y'all. Gang. Alright.